Hey, it's time for another Core Connection with Corey G. If you are around, join me. I would love to have you. And let me know what's going on in your world. And of course, ask questions as our conversation continues. Today's conversation is about becoming a student of you and then becoming the teacher. One of my favorite topics. So I recently began working with a client who has just been struggling to find his perfect process, his perfect formula. So, and maybe this might resonate with you. So, battling with procrastination, sometimes dealing with sleep issues, not being able to sleep because of all the things that you haven't quite completed during the day and that you know are still hanging over you for the next day. And of course, with that, increased levels of stress and anxiety about the things that you need to accomplish, and just generally not performing at the level that you know you're capable of, and that you know you have a lot to give, and that you're just not quite operating at the level that you know is possible for you. And so, what we began doing is becoming a student of you. And so, really, what this is about is what happens often when we're under stress. One thing, of course, procrastination, which only adds to stress. But another thing that happens is we want to run away from the stress. So instead of addressing what it is that might be causing the stress, most often our tendency is to look for the quick fix. So that could be, reaching for a drink, grabbing something sweet to eat or something salty, whatever it is for you. It could be, scrolling on social media, just again as a way to disconnect and not deal with the anxiety or stress that you're feeling. It could also be, hold on one second. It could also be just ignoring it, just pretending like it's not there, suppressing emotions, not being willing to even acknowledge what it is that you're feeling. And so what happens really is that you end up abandoning yourself, that whatever it is that's going on, what you're telling yourself is that it's not important, you're not important, and you have other things that you would rather do. So again, for example, any number of distractions. And when you think about it, really, is that distraction more important than your mental health, your physical health, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your work performance, how you're performing as a community member, as a family member, as a parent if you are a parent, as a friend? All these things that deeply, inherently, we desire to be the best person we could be, but often we default to some less than desirable behaviors. And so this whole idea of becoming a student of you is that you start paying attention, that you are kind enough to acknowledge the negative emotions or difficult emotions that come up and just be curious about them instead of critical of them. So instead of running away from them, simply acknowledging them. Wow, I'm feeling really anxious. And digging deeper, what is this about? And a lot of times, what happens with anxiety, with procrastination, with stress is we create this huge story about what is expected of us. Maybe, again, procrastination might be you have a big project to complete. And really, it's not the project that scares you, it's what comes after the project that creates the procrastination or the stress and anxiety. And so it could be this fear around maybe, I'm not going to perform very well, and so I won't do it until the last minute, and so I'll just basically prove to myself I don't perform well. And so what I most fear, which is not performing well, I actually get to achieve. It could be a fear of failure, so maybe facing ridicule or rejection. It could be even a fear of success, so facing attention, getting attention from others might be uncomfortable. And so when you're willing to start to study yourself and see what is underneath the stress and anxiety, procrastination, distraction, whatever pattern that you're running, then you can start to be the teacher. You can start to teach yourself. There's some other ways that you can choose to deal with this. And so the first part is becoming an astute student. So really measuring, monitoring, tracking, what are the different parts of my day where I start to feel more stress, what situations create more stress, what even times of the month, if you notice the end of the month, your stress tends to get higher because it's the end of the month, or middle of the month, whatever it might be. When there's certain people around, you notice your stress goes up, or certain activities or situations, meetings perhaps. So you begin to assess what are the triggers that lead to this behavior of feeling increased anxiety, feeling increased stress, feeling the sense of having to procrastinate or wanting to run away from yourself. And instead of engaging in the behavior, the default behavior, you simply bring your attention and curiosity. So I'm noticing in this week, every day around 4 o'clock, I start to get stressed out. And maybe it is about, I feel like I haven't got as much done as I had hoped. I'm starting to feel like a failure. I feel like I'm going to have to do even more tomorrow. And so once you have that awareness, then you can start to play around with your schedule and make changes in your schedule so that at 4 o'clock you feel a sense of accomplishment, that you've completed all of your tasks. And the most amazing thing of all is to be able to go to sleep at night and feel like a sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of satisfaction, not just in the fact that you completed all your projects, but that you also are beginning to change your behavior and beginning to interact with others, perhaps in a more present, focused way, because you're not worrying about all the things that you didn't get done, or all the things you have to do tomorrow, or all the ways you feel like you might have failed during the day. So the first part is monitoring and measuring what it is that you want to change. And the second part is evaluating. So once you see the patterns, then it's the opportunity to disrupt the pattern, to start to create some interventions in those patterns. So if you know around 4 o'clock I get really anxious, maybe that's the time of day that I then start to schedule a walk. So I have time to kind of reflect on the day, think about what I need to accomplish before I call it a day, what do I want to accomplish for the next day, in an environment that supports me in doing so creatively versus feeling the pressure. When we have pressure, we actually aren't very creative. So putting in place some interventions to help you start to interrupt those patterns. And then, of course, evaluating your progress. So is that pattern changing? And what are the results? Because we all are super results focused. And of course, we don't want to make changes if it doesn't do anything for us. What's the point? And so measuring results. So as I put in place these different activities to disrupt my own patterns, I'm noticing I am more productive. I notice that I have more patience with my family. I notice that I'm not as easily triggered as I was before. I notice that I actually feel a lot calmer even when I have big deadlines. And I feel that at the end of the day, I can breathe and relax, and I'm falling asleep much more quickly. So all of those are tangible things that you can measure to see, is what you're doing working? Is it giving you what you ultimately desire, which is a sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, connection with you operating at the highest level, connection with other people in a more intimate, vulnerable, authentic space, in connection to feeling this sense of purpose and meaning and what it is you're doing every day and how you're showing up every day and who you're interacting with and the type of work that you're doing and the way that you're doing it. So, would love to hear your thoughts on this. And part of this, again, is focusing on how can you make it a game? How can you make it fun and just use it as an experiment that you're the scientist of you to figure out, what can I do to help myself operate in a better way, to start to think in different ways, to start to perform at a higher level without perhaps the same message that maybe you or I grew up with, that, well, if I perform higher, that means I have to let go of my activities and I might have to sacrifice relationships. And so start to change the question to how can I perform better and increase my satisfaction in my relationships and have time for the activities that I love, because you are a multifaceted, multidimensional being, and all of you is what we are working on, not just your work or not just your relationships, not just your health. It's you at your best in every area of your life, and that is absolutely possible. So would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, if you are in a place where you're just not operating, not performing at the level you really want to be, the level that you can be operating at, and you're not feeling that real sense of connection and satisfaction and in the work that you're doing, and know that there's ways that Maybe if you brought some new insight to it, a new perspective, started to implement some new actions and started to disrupt some old behaviors, that you could get a renewed sense of connection to that work. And as well, same thing with your relationships. If you're feeling like this just relationships are kind of stagnant, what can we do to start to reinvigorate those? And how is that all within your power right now? So reach out to me if you are interested in learning more about increasing your performance in any area of your life and every area of your life, because really that's your birthright, is to be the best version of you all the time, everywhere, with everyone, no matter what, under all circumstances. That's the goal, okay? Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. I am so psyched that you chose to spend some time with me, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I also will include a guide that I just created to help you start to make these changes, to start to connect more deeply with where you want to be performing, how you want to be improving your life, how you want to be operating and showing up and interacting with others, and really that sense of deep contentment at the end of your day, to fall asleep knowing you have the power to create something phenomenal and you're doing it. So look for that in the comments, and I'll see you all soon. Ciao.